Welcome to The Edge of the Unknown, Stories of Growth and Grit, a podcast about resilience, transformation, and rediscovering yourself after life's most challenging moments. I'm Lisa, and I have walked the path of heartbreak, betrayal, and reinvention, and I am living every day as an adventure. Here, we embrace the messiness of growth, uncover the strength within, and learn to rewrite the stories we tell ourselves. Each episode will feature stories that will help you feel seen, find clarity, and reconnect with who you are. Let's get going. Hi, everyone. This is Lisa. I hope you're well. I wanted to record an intro to this next episode. It's an interview with my friend Kirsten Dunn. And I wanted to give a little bit of a warning. If you've lost a loved one, or especially a child, this could be triggering for you. And it's a beautiful interview with Kirsten, and she shares a very heartfelt and personal story of when she lost her 13-year-old daughter. And I really just hope that you can feel like I did, her honesty and her strength, her resiliency, but also know that, living with grief, it's okay because there's nothing you can do to take the grief away. And another takeaway from this episode is to learn a little bit more about sepsis. I never realized that it was such a quick and silent killer. And Kirsten shares a little bit more about it, and there'll be more in the show notes. So please join me and listen to this beautiful interview. There were some tears, mine and hers, and even when I re-listen to the episode, I get myself a little choked up. But it's an important story to hear. And without further ado, I would like you to join me in this interview, and have a good day. It is so good to see you. How are you today?
Good, Lisa. So good to see you again.
And thank you for doing this. I think your story it's so important for people to hear, not just women.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you for having me. It's powerful to be able to share.
yeah. And I think your message is going to resonate even for people who haven't been what you've been through. I think that your message is important for us all to hear. But before we get started, I like to start every episode with some grounding. So just get yourself comfortable. And listeners, get yourself comfortable. If you're driving, be careful. If you're home, you can close your eyes. And I invite you just to take a couple deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. And just nice deep breaths. And I invite you to breathe into your heart space and really feel that breath opening up your heart. And as you exhale, just exhale anything that just doesn't belong today. And now I invite you to breathe in a little extra deeply and a little sip at the top, holding that breath at the top, feeling the expansion in your heart, and then exhaling out long and slow. And now that we're grounded, I invite us to bring in a sense of gratitude. And so, my first question for you today, Kirsten, is what are 3 things that you're grateful for?
Hmm. Of course, I'm grateful for my kids and my partner, first and foremost. Second of all, I think I would have to say I'm thankful for this process that I've had to go through. Although it be very difficult, it's been quite a learning lesson for me. And third, I think I'm grateful for unconditional love that has transpired out of my experience.
Wow. I think that's important. I don't even think of the unconditional love. That's a really powerful thing to think about.
Yeah,
I love that.
in a lot of forms, from myself, from my partner, for myself, giving that back to myself. It transformed how I um, care for and admire my living daughter. And I'm thankful profoundly for like the amount of love I had for the child that I lost. So it's a lot of different forms, but it all is encompassing these unconditional aspect of being able to understand love.
Wow. Yeah. So, you and I have known each other actually for
Quite a
quite a few
while.
years. I used to call you as part of a group of my once a year friends.
Yep.
Just for listeners, Kirsten and I were on a running team for Ragnar. We did the Ragnar Trail Race once a year. I think the first year we did it was like 2014,
Yeah.
something
Maybe.
like that.
Yeah.
And
Something.
then
I don't remember.
every year, the same group of people would get together and run this race, and we'd camp and we'd cook and we'd just have this great time. And I know you guys all saw each other throughout the year, but
Yeah.
I basically saw that group once a year.
Yeah.
And so, thanks to social media, Facebook, we've kept in touch.
Yeah.
But I admired you as an athlete. I admire you as a person. I remember the one time I had some sort of Achilles tendonitis, and you did some magic to my foot and it helped it so I could keep running. So I am just glad to reconnect with you. And rather than me talking about, your story, I'd love to hear in your own words, what is your story, or really what is Emma's story?
Okay. Um, I mean, I guess I don't really know how to start, but I will start by saying that my story is that I have lost my youngest child due to sepsis. She passed away, believe it or not, from a simple cut on her finger that progressively got infected. And her body did something that infectious disease specialists called compensation, meaning that she was so healthy that she was able to get to the end of her life without many symptoms or any symptoms for that matter before there was complete and total failure. So, sepsis is a very interesting disease, and many, many, many of us think about sepsis as a disease of elderly
Mm-hmm.
when their immune system's very run down and they don't have the resources to fight and deal with pneumonia or a wound from having a pressure sore or heaven forbid, COVID or something like that. But pediatric sepsis is the number one killer of children worldwide. And typically, children that get sepsis die because it is such a unknown thing for pediatricians to look at. They don't often look, kids don't have the same signs as adults. They don't show the same symptoms, oftentimes any symptoms for that matter, in Emma's case. And it can take them out of nowhere from a urinary tract infection to a simple cut on a finger to strep throat. And so sepsis is catastrophic. And it's interesting to kind of learn through this process just how deadly it is to children. And unfortunately, it is completely unaware to most people. And a matter of fact, less than 70% of adults in the United States even know what the word sepsis means. And Emma was one of 8,000 people in 2022 in the United States alone, children that died of sepsis. So Emma had cut her finger Christmas Day. It had been treated by my ex-husband. It resulted in an infection in her finger. About 10 days later, we took her into her pediatrician who treated her with a round of antibiotics. Little did we know that the antibiotics did not kill the entire infection that existed in her bloodstream. And over the next 60 days, it manifested into a complete and total infection of her bloodstream.
Oh my
Um, she proceeded in the process to go into cardiac arrest and bleed internally. And that's ultimately how she died, was what's called pulmonary hemorrhage, which was bleeding through her lungs. So that's Emma's story. Who Emma was one of the most intentional children you'll ever meet. She was a very old soul. She loved everyone she met. She cared for everyone she met. Her friend group called her the mom.
God.
So she uh she was an incredibly caring, very, very intentional child, um, which I think is one of the hardest things because everything she did with purpose.
Wow. I just, as a mom myself, the fact that you're sitting here is amazing. How did you get through that? I mean, it's heartbreaking, yes, and tragic, but the real story is what's happened since 2022 is how
Yeah,
did you
I
and your
mean,
family cope?
yeah, I mean, obviously, grief is a very interesting, profound experience, and I think that child loss is probably the most devastating type of grief a mother can go through, primarily because, chronologically, it's not supposed to happen that way. And that child is us, and that we are that child. I mean, we've shared blood streams and everything else being pregnant. And so I think there's a deeper connection for mothers and children, especially in a loss situation. Um, how do we get through it? The first 6, 8 weeks, I couldn't hardly do anything. I mean, it was all I could do to even get 45 minutes of sleep. I didn't eat. It was, oh, I can take a shower, but what does it do for you? I mean, it's hard to kind of figure out every day how to pick up and do something for yourself, whether that's eating, drinking water, going for a walk. Every aspect of your life is now altered. Everything that you knew day to day is now different because that child is not there to care for. And in our situation, I had another child to care for, and I didn't have a choice. I couldn't be broken. I had to figure out how to help her, help myself, help my partner through this.
And how old was Emma and how old was your older daughter?
Uh, Emma was 13 and a half when she passed, and Maddie had just turned 16.
Okay.
So, here we are, the kid in the throes of high school, IB classes, AP classes, trying to do all these things and have such a devastating loss. My goal was to make sure she was okay, uh, because I didn't know what else to do but to care for her and
Right.
maybe overly can care for her and overly concerned for her because this kid just left the earth and I had no idea that she was even sick. So, um, yeah, I mean, believe it or not, as you were talking, the one of the very first things I did the morning after Emma died, I called a friend of mine who was an anesthesiologist, and I was an absolute panicked mess. And the first thing she had me and my partner do was breathe. And we did box breathing because
Okay.
it was the only thing I could focus on. I was sobbing uncontrollably. I was on the verge of like dry heaving and vomiting. And she's like, you have to breathe. You have to calm down by breathing. And so that's what she had me do.
Yeah. Breathing is life. And
Yeah.
you just needed to focus on living at that point.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, I mean, as the process goes through, I had a fundamentally really great community of people that were willing to step up to help me write obituaries and help me go pick up her ashes and help me pick up her death certificate. And I mean, it's gutting having to drive down the road, literally carrying your kid out of a mortuary in a box. Like, you know, people complain about doing that with their pets. It's completely different when it's your own kid.
Yeah.
And then what do you do with that? Like, what am I supposed to do? My kid's in a box, a little tiny box. Like, you like wrap your brain around how you cope with that is it's hard. And I think it's very individual for each person, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't, I mean, you asked me how I cope, how did I get here? A lot of tiny little baby steps and breathing. And that's literally what I've done from day to day is like, okay, what do I need today? What does my living child need today? And if I can't do it, what can somebody else do to help me get through it? And I think that the first thing I had to honor in this loss was asking for help because it was so difficult to even make a decision about where I'm supposed to have some funeral service and what I'm supposed to bring there and who's going to do the flowers. And like, you just don't think you ever have to make these decisions.
Right. It's not, I think it's wired in our DNA. We all, subtly prepare for the death of our parents or our grandparents. And so that back in the back of our mind, okay, we have to deal with that someday. But the other way, you never, it's not, it's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I couldn't even imagine. And I'm glad that you had the help.
Yeah. So, we went through a secondary process of a malpractice situation. So that was kind of intertwined in dealing with the grief. Um, and I slowly started to realize that like, okay, what are the other purposes in my life besides being a mother? Or being a mother to Emma versus being mother to Maddie was like, okay, well, I am a partner, so let's like make sure that him and I are solid. And then my next purpose was like, okay, I do have a purpose and work is very fulfilling for me. So I started dabbling a few hours a day, getting back to work at like week 6, week 7, just to like give myself something else to think about because it was almost so difficult to stay sitting in my own grief in my quiet house by myself when all this people started to drop away after her funeral. So, yeah, I had all this massive amounts of support and then I was alone.
Oh yeah.
So I had to try and figure out how I was going to get back through every single day. And being in your own head about those things can be very, very challenging because you don't want to, but you have to. So it was a very slow process. I think it took me about 6 months to even start kind of talking about how I felt about things because it was so catastrophic that my partner and I were probably just trying to understand what happened to each other and his version, my version, Maddie's version of like where did we miss? How did we what happened here? How did we forget to check this or how come the doctor didn't do X, Y, or Z? And you kind of go through all these scenarios to try and rationalize your mind what just happened to you. Um, and believe it or not, the next thing I did is sit with a therapist and do some trauma therapy around EMDR. And the first thing she had me do was breathe.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I realized that grief sits in your lungs from an acupuncture type perspective. That's where grief hangs out. And I could breathe in, but I couldn't breathe out, which is very strange.
Yeah. And that
So I could
also
inhale,
it makes
but I
me
couldn't hold.
understand why it hurts right here when you're feeling grief. Your whole heart
Yeah,
space hurts.
yeah.
So you
Yeah.
couldn't breathe out.
So I was taught by an acupuncturist. I could not, well, I could breathe in, but I could not hold my breath and control my breath out. It would just exhale. I mean, I would just dash out of me as soon as I breathe in. I like I could not control my breath. And so we worked on that for several weeks, and I had to practice learning
Wow.
how to breathe again. I, of course, was not exercising at the time, so it didn't really affect me in my brain, but I then realized like how much control the tension in my torso was just locking down, forcing that breath out, that I had to figure out a way to like kind of not just open my lungs to like receiving that air, but also like just receiving other things that were going to help me. So, yeah, I mean, trauma therapy helped, right? I have significant amounts of post-traumatic stress from performing CPR on my daughter, watching them do life-saving measures to save her life, watching them perform CPR, watching her die, various different, visions in my head of the moments of her time of death and that sort of things. And, my biggest moment of post-traumatic stress is seeing myself on the floor of the hospital at Children's, literally a pile of goo, and I was unable to move. I was uncontrollably sobbing and just pure devastation. Me so broken at that point. So the work has been to understand what that meant to me, that moment. Okay. And how do I build from that absolute low, the lowest, most devastating point I've ever been in my life? Um, so I think the work for that started after our malpractice uh, situation settled about a year, 15 months after she passed. And I think I had to really, really dig deep about what all those visions and feelings were to me and why I felt that way.
Instead of just pushing them down.
Yeah, I mean, like
That's,
you don't ever resolve them unless you understand them.
ah.
So, what comes out of it is understanding what grief is to me. Like, how do I move forward with the next 45 years of my life and carry grief in one hand and joy and happiness in the rest of my life in the other?
And how do you think you're doing on that journey?
Um, it depends every
Mhm.
day. I have to reflect on myself pretty often. Um, Losing a child and grief is incredibly isolating. So it gives you a lot of time to have your own perspective of other people because other people see you differently. You see the world differently. Every aspect of who you are and what your life about is different. And it sheds light to like what truly is important. Um, I think grief and the loss of a child is fundamentally forever. Like I've
Mhm.
lost high school graduation and I've lost college and I've lost her wedding and I've lost grandchildren. And so the effects of that loss continue for my lifetime
Yeah.
of what my expectations were, right?
Now, did you find that you reinvented yourself or did you just continue just the same person, but with this heaviness with you?
I wouldn't call myself reinvented and I wouldn't call myself the same. Um, I mean, parts of me are the same, right? I think I'm always a helper and a caring person, and I believe that maybe perhaps I help when it's more appropriate and it's not just because somebody asked for help, it's because I know that person truly needs help and I can give a service. And so maybe my boundaries around that are better. I think I'm more caring. I think I've understand the pendulum of like what the depth of my friendships mean, what the depth of my relationships mean, what the depths of my love for my child means. And so I think that like those parts of me are just more deep and more profound to me. Um, yeah, I mean, saying I reinvented myself, every fiber of my being has been altered and changed in some way. So I, I have reached a point in this journey where I find the need to fulfill a purpose. Right. Emma was a purpose in my life. And although she still is a purpose in my life, I have to do something to honor her and her purpose here. So going back to very beginning, Emma lived with intention, and I try to do that as much as I possibly can. And I do things with intention as much as I possibly can. Like I don't just do things just to do things. I do things because there's a reason to do them and they're important. Um, I would say, I've fulfilled some gaps by honoring Emma's memory by doing podcasts. I speak at Children's Hospital to doctors about sepsis. I speak nationally about sepsis. Um, on the micro level, her birthday's on Saturday, and we'll go to her favorite little restaurant and get her favorite little burrito.
Mm.
And we called her Junebug because her middle name was June. And we release live ladybugs into her garden at sunset because she loves sunsets. So, we do little things like that. I still buy her Christmas ornament, and it takes a little bit of different spin. It's probably more about the memories of what we have of Emma. Um, she loved mac and cheese, so I have mac and cheese ornament, and she loved blueberries, so I bought a blueberry ornament, things
Oh,
like that. So we do, and we talk about her, I think is the most important thing, is share our stories of who she was. And even like Emma would have loved if when we did X, Y, and Z, if we were, out on a hike or whatever. And so we bring her in
yeah.
to our experience when it feels appropriate. Um,
Is Maddie coming home for the weekend?
she's not, no,
She's
she's
not.
actually going to on her sister by paddle boarding, which is
Oh,
something that they love together. But she typically takes flowers. She's in Florida at a university, and so she'll take some flowers and drop them in the ocean when she's paddleboarding, just kind of honor her sister a little bit.
and does she have a good support system away at college? Because that's so far away.
Um, it's been an interesting transition for her. She had a phenomenal support system at her high school, when Emma passed, from the administrators all the way down to her friends and her coaches. And it's been a very different transition for her because of the way society sees grief. They tend to turn a blind eye to it, pretend it's not there, don't know what to say. She has found that she doesn't share about her sister until she's closer to somebody because they're just like, oh, you're kind of broken. Oh, we don't know what to do with you. We don't know how to treat you. That sort of behavior. So
Oh,
she has a counselor here. She has us. She has her friends from high school that she reaches out to. And she has one friend, roommate that kind of understands the situation. But yeah, she has some scenarios where she feels very lonely. And I've encouraged her to kind of there's some various different groups on campus, like built around resilience and things like that, to kind of build that up in her. But Maddie, too, is a very private child. So she's not hugely into sharing her emotions anyway. So
got it.
it's
Yeah.
a process for all of us.
Yeah. But I have to admire the fact that she feels strong enough and that knows that you're strong enough that she can leave you.
Yeah.
Um, obviously she knows that you have support, that you're strong, that she can live her life and it's okay for her to live her life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, it was a huge decision to move 1,500 miles away from home to experience what she's always dreamed of. And, her college essays were letters to her sister
Oh,
about following her
oh,
dreams. So I
oh, that's
think
beautiful.
I think her being able to understand that Emma would have wanted this for her is one of the most important things that she could have recognized.
Very much. Very much. And what would you want listeners to take away from this story?
Mm. Wow. Um, Grief is hard. Um, Grief is isolating. And I think one of the most important things is to show up for your people because you never know when they're going to be gone.
Yeah.
I mean, you realize that too. You've experienced that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is. It's important to realize that and not take anyone for granted. Um, I just wish I could come through the camera and give you a hug.
Thanks, sweetie.
Oh my gosh, but I do admire you and I mean it's not even been 4 years, so it's I know that it's still super raw. So I appreciate you opening up and sharing your pain with me. Um because I know there's somebody out there that's feeling that pain that probably feels alone.
Yeah.
And did you tell me are you part of any sort of like support groups for
Yeah.
other
I've
women
done,
who've lost children?
yeah, I've done a handful of different support groups. They're all fulfilling in different ways. Um, Children's Hospital offers free bereavement care for uh, exponentially as long as you need it. They do like kind of an intensive 8 week and then it's once a month after that. And so I'll bop in and out when I feel the need, or maybe I just feel like I want to connect with another parent. I've done um, grief support groups that have contained yoga and somatic healing and journaling and meditation all kind of encompassed in one. And those were helpful. They didn't give rise to a lot of connection. I mean, you're dealing with people around the country, so it's like, time zones and different schedules and different places in our life. I mean, you have a mother that loses a 20-year-old infant or a 60-year-old woman that loses her daughter to a heart attack in Central Park. I mean, it's very different and everybody's story is different. So it kind of becomes hard to connect because although we all understand the grief and loss of our child, all of our relationships with our children are different.
Right.
And every grieving process for every single person is different, whether it's a parent, a child, or a friend, or a pet, or whatever.
Yeah, it seems incredibly personal.
It is. It's definitely an individual journey. And to wrap other people, like my mother, my partner, my kid, back up in it, it's like sometimes they understand where you're at and sometimes they don't, and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, well, I just want to thank you again. Is there anything else you wanted to share, um, that that I might want to know or my listeners might want to know? And if not, I just once again appreciate you being here.
I don't know that there's anything else I want to share, but thank you for having me and letting me speak a little bit about Emma. And
Yeah, of course. And I will put in the show notes some information about sepsis. And so if people want to read about it, because I also think it's very important that we're aware that I had no idea until I talked to you that 8,000 kids died in just the United States.
one
That
year, yeah,
seems like a huge number of children who
are
die of this.
completely preventable.
Yeah. So I think just awareness is a big takeaway. So
Yeah. Okay,
so well, it's been lovely to reconnect with you, and hopefully next time I'm down in your area, maybe I'll give you a call and we'll share a coffee.
that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, Lisa.
Okay. We'll talk to you very soon.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to The Edge of the Unknown. If this episode resonated with you, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. It will help more people find my stories. If you know someone who needs to hear it, please share it with them. And if you have a story of resilience, transformation, or reinvention that you would like to share, I would love to hear from you. Whether you are navigating a major life transition or just want to talk about what's next, I am here to support you. Until next time, remember, you are stronger than you think, and your next chapter is waiting.